You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. If you're listening to this show, chances are you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees. Whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades, every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back for another episode of the Hot Options Report. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Reminding you that, hey, if you like what you're listening to, make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you get your favorite podcast programs. A lot of fun stuff coming at you every day. And of course, make sure you're checking out the pro. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we learn what's popping off in the options market today. Let's kick things off in the land of VIX, shall we? Was it a banger day in VIX options? Once again, the answer is no. 662,000 contracts on the tape today against an ADV of 850. So not quite getting there today. VIX cash closing right around the 15 handle today, slightly north of it. And the hot option out there today, 26,000 of the September 15 puts. If you're wondering what do those go up for today, they had an average price of about 13 cents. So it's up to you whether you think that's cheap or too rich sold to you. Either way, that's your hot option in VIX land today. Let's keep rolling on out to SPY. Was it a banger day out there in SPY land today? Once again, listeners, the answer was no. A decently active day, about 7.2 million contracts, but that's light when compared to the ADV of 7.9 million. SPY going out right around the 650 level, about 650 in the third. And the hot option out there in SPY land today, 710,000 of these 6.5 calls. So once again, going out right near our strike out here. By the way, they had an average price of 36 cents. So pretty darn close to the level for those 6.5 calls out there today is where SPY went out. As we keep on rolling to the land of the SPX. Was it a banger day in the SPX? You might expect me to say no, but the answer was yeah, it was decent. It was right about in line with expectations. In fact, the ADV is about 3.9 million, and the S put up about 3.9 million. By the way, the S going out 65, 12, 61 today, and the hot option out there in the SPX today, listeners, 203,000 of the 65.10 calls. They had an average price of about 275 on those bad boys. So within spitting distance for those calls out there as well. Of course, if you bought them and held them through the end of the session. As we keep on rolling out to small caps, listeners, we've been waiting for a hot day in small caps lately, and you got one today, at least an average day. Maybe let's temper expectations a bit, because the ADV, which has been inflated for a while now, is 1.4 million. It hit that inflated ADV today, pretty much exactly 1.4 million contracts changing hands out there in IWM today. By the way, IWM closing today 236.85, giving up about 0.6%. So bucking the trend. Most of the other major indices closing up today, but not small caps. Once again, deciding to dance to the beat of their own drummer. The hot option out there in small caps. Going back to 0-day fund, it was 81,000 of the 237 calls expiring today. Average price at 26 cents. You know what I'm going to tell you next, listeners. If you paid anything for those and you held them through the close, unfortunately, not a winner chicken dinner for you as we keep on rolling out to the land of the NASDAQ. NASDAQ has been leading the charge in terms of action out there, and a decent day, but not quite hitting its ADV, closing in on 3.7 million contracts. In the NASDAQ today, that's still about 500,000 contracts shy of the ADV out there, listeners. By the way, the NASDAQ closing up a little over 0.25%, a little bit north of 580, right around 580.5 today. And the hot option out there in the Qs, appropriately enough, it was the 580 calls going up nearly 350,000 times for an average price of about 55 cents. Go figure how that works. Fascinating stuff in the world of zero DTE options trading, listeners, as we keep on rolling out to the land of the single name equity options. Was it a banger day out there, listeners? The answer was, it was all right. 488,000 contracts on the tape. That takes us out to China once again, listeners, going out to JD.com, popping after an earnings beat, closing today 33.87, up about $1, a little over 3%. So having a nice little run for them today, putting up again 488,000 contracts, taking the number 10 spot. And the hot option out there in JD today, listeners, this one's kind of wild, not expiring this week or even this month, listeners. No. It's nearly 140,000 of the January of 2026 40 calls, 40 calls. So these are about $6 and change out of the money after today's rally, listeners. What were they trading for? An average price of about $1.82. So 40 calls, January of next year, nearly $2. You like those, or is that a little bit of sold to you, listeners? Either way, that was the hot option by a country mile in JD today. So bucking the trend. I'd have to, if I had to guess, listeners, and I do, that is part of the job. If I had to guess, I would wager that pretty much the rest of our top 10 is going to be pretty biased on the weeklies. And that is the case with the exception of one actually going past this week to next week. How dare they? Can you take a guess which one it is as we keep on rolling? To number 9, listeners, it's our old pal Alphabet Class A. I used to joke that when Alphabet made it into the top 10 was kind of a sleepy day. But these days, in the post-AI boom era, things have changed a little bit. Alphabet Class A, number 9, 534,000 contracts on the tape for them. The hot option out there in Alphabet, 23,500 of the 240 calls expiring this Friday. Alphabet going out a little bit shy of that today. 239.63 again for the number 9 spot. Number 8 falling all the way to number 8 today. It seemed like it's been glued at number 3 forever, at least since we launched this show. Open falling all the way down to number 8, closing $6.11, up not even a dime on the day, having a 50-cent range, so living up to its expectations out there. And in terms of volume, 556,000 contracts on the tape. The hot option out there and open today, 51,000 of the 6 puts. Seeing some put action dominating the tape in open. That's interesting, a bit of a flipping of the script. It pretty much has been all calls all the time ever since open exploded into the top 10 a few weeks ago. So interesting stuff out there. If you're wondering what's a 6 put going for expiring this Friday, about 36 cents. So they were in the money for a brief period, about a dime in the money earlier today. So up to you whether you think 36 cents is a good do or sold to you as we keep on rolling to number 7. It's our old pal Robinhood, continuing their rally after getting added to the S&P, closing 118.5 today, up about $1.25, putting up 579,000 contracts for the number 7 spot, listeners, and the hot option in Robinhood today, 31,000 of the 120s, average price of about $1.75. Only $1.50 out of the money. Can we get there by Friday, listeners? If they continue this rally, the answer is certainly yes. So up to you whether you think those are a good do or not, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 6, it's AMD. We're going out to Chipland, listeners. AMD, again, number 6, 701,000 contracts on the tape. for them. AMD closing 155.82, up nearly $4.50 or nearly 3%. So a nice little run for them today. The hot option on a hot day in AMD, 93, nearly 94,000 of the 155 calls. Average price of $213. They went out 82 cents in the money, so that accounts for some of that juice out there. But interesting stuff. Can we close north of 157 in AMD by Friday, listeners? I guess we'll have to keep an eye on it to find out, and you'll have to keep listening to the Hot Options Report as we keep on rolling. To number 5, it's been a little bit since we've seen this name in the top 10, listeners. I'm talking about UNH. A lot of it has been driven by some terrible headlines, but having an aggressive pop out there today. UNH closing a little bit shy of 348, popping over 27 handles, nearly 9% today. So a wild run for UNH. Our buddy Mr. Overby was just talking about UNH on Options Oddities last week. Yet another reason why you should be listening and checking out the pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. UNH, again, putting up 908,000 contracts out there. And the hot option in UNH, this was the one lone exception, listeners. Going out to the monthly Septembers, it was the 350 calls. Changing hands nearly 35,000 times. Average price of nearly $6, $5.86. So they are not giving these away. Again, UNH closing at about 348 today. They did get as high as about 351 3/4. So that obviously accounts for some of that juice. A, just the explosive move and the vol associated with it. And B, they were in the money calls for a little bit. So if you're saying to yourself, nearly $6, that does account for some of it. But either way, number 5, rocketing all the way up UNH, 908,000 contracts. Number 4, it's one of our frequent offenders, listeners. Always have to have some of those in the mix every day. It's Palantir, popping hard today as well, rallying over about 6 1/4, closing 162 1/3, about 4% to the upside today. So hot stuff out there in Palantir. Again, 931,000 contracts on the tape. And the hot option on a hot day in Palantir, what was it, listener? I'll give you a couple seconds to see if you can guess. If you guess 68,000 of the 165 calls, then you've been paying attention. Again, about $2.50 out of the money calls. Average price of $1.62. So Palantir needs to continue this run through the end of this week if you're looking to buy those bad boys, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 3. Yes, number 3. It's Tesla. Getting kicked to number 3 today. 1.17 million contracts on the tape. Tesla closing right about 347, up about $0.50 today. So not a wild day for them. Probably why they fell to number 3. The hot option out there, 71,000 of the 350 calls. Average price of nearly $5 for these, $4.90. You know, Tesla's a volatile name, so that's going to account for a lot of that price. But still, $5. Obviously, you have to close north of 355 for these bad boys to break even, listeners. Can we do it by Friday? We shall see. $5, usually not a big move for Tesla. Be interesting to see if we can get there. Also interesting to see what could kick Tesla to the curb today, listeners. Well, it's our old pal, the fruit company, a.k.a. Apple. Apple, for as long as I remember watching them and trading them in the modern era, has been pretty much a buy the rumor, sell the fact type of name. And that's exactly what happened today. They had their announcement of their new devices. Market mostly responding with a shrug, taking it to the stock today, selling off about $3.50 or 1.5%, closing 234 1/3, but did put up some volume today, about 1.3 million contracts out there. And the hot option in a decently hot day, volume-wise in Apple, 163,000 of the 240 calls. Again, nearly $6 out of the money calls. Average price of about $1.25. So Apple needs to get in gear throughout the rest of the week if these calls are going to remain relevant. We'll keep an eye on them here on future editions of the Hot Options Report coming later this week, listeners. That means you know what the big dog is. It's Nvidia once again, retaining the crown. Nearly 2.4 million contracts on the tape for them today. Nvidia closing 170 3/4, up about $2.50 or about 1.5%. The hot option out there today, 172,000 of the 170s. Average price of, appropriately enough, $1.70. So you like those, listeners? Can Nvidia close north of 170? At this point, it's only about $1 out of the money, so won't take that much for Nvidia to make these look good there, listeners. And that's going to do it for your Hot Options Report for today, September 9th out there, listeners. Hope you're having a good start to your trading week. I'll be back here tomorrow with another extravaganza of content on the network. Of course, Options Bootcamp, everyone's favorite options educational program. And if you're new to the world of options, you definitely should be checking it out. Of course, the futures rundown. If you're futures curious, perhaps you want to join us for a little bit of the old futures rundown. And then, of course, back again after the closing bell tomorrow, another episode of Thor, aka the Hot Options Report. We'll see you then, and of course, stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.